Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now I do all things crafty, but on today's video I'm going to try my hand at DTF printing. So I was out of town for a few days and when I got home this huge box was here. And so it is a DTF printer by Procolored. Now if you're not familiar with DTF, DTF is a special printer. It uses DTF ink. It prints on film, and then you use that as a transfer. The beauty of it is, unlike sublimation, it can go on many different types of fabric. It can go on many different colors of fabric. And so it opens up a whole new world to those of us that like to do garment decoration. So I am excited to dig into the box, watch some videos on YouTube University, and get started. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing that. And then if you do, tap the bell, select the all notifications. That way YouTube lets you know anytime I upload new content. Now, I got everything out of the box, and we're going to start with the printer. So I have the printer, the oven, and then a little press. But I want to focus on the printer and the oven. And then along with the printer, I got the ink that I need. So I got the magenta, the yellow, the cyan, the black, the white, and then I also got something called Protect. Now here's the bottle of Protect, and I wrote on the outside not ink. I didn't want to get it confused with white ink, so I wrote not ink on it, and I'm going to set it aside. I think this has to do with the print head, but just digging into this, I'm not sure what yet. So the other things that I received with the printer are the power cable, the cable to connect it to a computer. I got some white rags. I did receive some syringes, a couple of rolls of tape, and then to me these appear to be part of the ink system. I think somebody else called them dampers, but this is what the ink flows through. So possibly if one that's already in here breaks or malfunctions, these are replacements. I got a couple of funnels. And then I got 2 zip drives or thumb drives. One has instructions and one has the actual RIP software. RIP software is what you have to use with a DTF printer since you're not only managing your colors, but you're also managing white ink. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to install this little metal box on the back of the printer, and you put your little waste bottle in that. And then finally, I did get some DTF film. The one thing that they weren't able to send me right now is powder, but I already have some DTF powder, so I'm not too concerned. Now, I have this printer sitting on an old wooden Lazy Susan, so I'm just gonna zip it around, let you see the back, and we'll get this installed. Okay, so here's what the little box looks like. It's metal. And so what I'm going to do is unscrew those 2 screws, place this where they were, and then replace those screws inside here. Now I didn't get the little Phillips head screwdriver with it, and so if you don't have one, you might have to invest in that. And then you see the little tube right here. This was actually folded over with a zip tie on it, and I had to cut the zip tie. So be really careful you don't accidentally puncture this tube. This is for the waste ink to come out of the machine, and it's going to go in here. Okay, so you have some holes in here, and those holes are going to line up with the old screw holes. Line it up with that hole, and I'm going to screw it in just part way for now. I'm going to do the exact same thing on this other side. All right, that took me a good 8 tries. The screw kept falling off the screwdriver before I could get it screwed in. Okay, I have those tightened up. So now I'm going to put my little waste ink bottle here. And then I'm just going to place this down in one of these holes. Okay, the next thing it says to do is go ahead and hook this up to power so that you can try to feed a piece of film through it. They just want to make sure it's functioning correctly. Now here's the power cord, and so this end right here feeds right into here. All right, let's go ahead and plug this into the wall or a nice extension cord. Okay, so I plugged it in and it powered up on its own. You can probably hear it. I thought I would have to actually hit the power button, but you can see it's doing its thing. Okay, so the temperature controller, it heated all the way up to 46. Now it's coming down. I didn't see in my instructions what I'm supposed to keep that out. I do see that you can set it. I assume they have it defaulted for the right temperature. So for now, I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the power button on. And the power button is right here. Okay, it turned green and now it's flashing back and forth. I think when it quits flashing, it's ready for you to do something. Okay, so the power button is now flashing. Everything else has stopped. The temperature keeps fluctuating between 46 and then it goes back down. I'm not sure how far it's gotten down, but I'm just going to stay with the default temperature. We'll see how that goes. So the next thing they did is they said feed a piece of film through it to make sure it's going to feed correctly. So you lift that, and then they sent me some film, and in the package it showed which was the print side, which wasn't. So I'm just going to place this in it with the print side up, and then I'm going to press, I think it's this button right here, just to make sure it feeds through correctly. Now I also need to lower this. Okay, so I have my film in there, and then to send a piece of paper through or a piece of film through, I'm supposed to press this button right here. So we'll go ahead and press that. We'll see if it feeds through well. All right, so it did feed through, and that is the first time I've successfully had a piece of film load through a printer without a hack. So I'm excited about that. Okay, so the next thing it's telling me to do is add the ink. So let me go ahead and turn this so you can see that. Now this is a tank for all the ink. So it just slides up. It kind of hangs on a couple of plastic pieces here. And then to add the ink, you lay it down and then let this lid open. Now I have 6 tanks. Some of these only have 5, and some of them with 5 have 2 tubes coming out of the white. But mine has 1 tank for the blue, or the cyan, 1 for the magenta, 2 tanks for the white. They each have 2 lines coming out of those, 1 for the black and 1 for the yellow. Now those are tiny little areas to put the ink into. And so that must be why they gave me those little funnels. Okay, so these little lids are actually connected. So 2 of them are connected together. So I need to be super careful. I get the blue in here and the magenta in here. Usually I like to have 1 lid off at a time when I'm putting ink in something. But in this one, I'm going to go ahead, put the cyan there, the magenta there, then I'll close them back up. Then what happens is you put it into this front and it's going to feed into this larger tank. All right, so let's put that down in there. Now I'm going to just gently stir this up. I don't want to shake it up so much that I introduce a lot of bubbles. Okay, I went ahead and put a glove on. Now I have seen some people do this without making a mess at all. That's not me. I'm just messy. Now what I don't know is how much ink's going to go in here. So I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. I don't want to accidentally overfill it and then it's all over the floor. Now, other videos that I watched, they had different tanks, and so they were able to just pour the whole thing in quickly. This one, not so much. Okay, I've literally barely gotten any in there, and I feel like it's going to overflow. Let's keep going. Okay, so I stopped the video because it just didn't feel like I was doing this right. That is such a tiny little thing. I could barely get maybe a third of the bottle of ink in it. The videos that I watched before, the tanks were larger, the mouths on the tanks were larger, and people literally could just dump their ink in. So I found a video by Angel Bee Designs. She has one just like this, and I'm doing it right. So I feel much better. But again, I couldn't get very much ink in there, and it was going to overflow if I tried to get more. So I think what'll happen is when I close this lid and I lift it, that ink's going to go into these larger tanks, and then I can add more. So I'm going to go ahead and do the magenta, and then the rest I'm just going to do off camera. So I kept the plastic on the bottle in case it leaked down, it wouldn't go on my table. And I'm really glad I did because it was kind of a mess. Now, one thing I did notice on Angel Bee's video is her ink was in different bottles. She had squeeze lids, and so many videos that I watch, people are getting slightly different things. And so even though this video might be helpful, it's probably not going to give you everything you need to get your job done. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to puncture this. I'm not going to take the lid all the way off. These little tanks are so tiny that I'm afraid if I did, I would just dump way too much in. So that's all I did. Now I got 2 funnels, and so I washed out the first one. I'm letting it dry, and then I'm ready for the magenta in its tank. So follow along down here. Make sure you're putting it in the right place. All right, I don't know if you can see it, but that ink was coming up to the top of that. So just do a little bit at a time. Okay, so this bottle, it is still full to there. So I got about a third to half of it in the tank. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the little plunger things or the lids back inside. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and then I'll pick the video back up. All right, so now the next thing for me to do is go ahead and install the driver and the RIP software. So one thing you're going to need to know about this printer is you do have to use a PC-based computer. My Mac doesn't work, so I had to borrow a PC to make this video. Now, I've already downloaded the driver and installed the RIP software, but I want to show you something that might be helpful because this was a really confusing part to me. Now, my printer came with 2 thumb drives. The blue one is actually the RIP software, and then the white one has general information as well as the driver and the installation of the RIP software. So the only time that I use my blue thumb drive is when I'm actually using the printer. There's nothing that was on the blue thumb drive that I had to install into my computer. So I inserted the white thumb drive into one of the USB ports on this borrowed computer, and here's what's on it. Now there's some general information on there, but let me show you the first thing you need to do, and that's to download the driver. So I'm going to double click right there where it says software driver, and here's what you have. So what I did was first, I went to this top one and I installed the driver. Now I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Whoops. Okay, I waited too long to cancel it. But basically, you would say, yes, make changes to my computer. I'm going to go ahead and say no because I've already done it. Then the second thing is you need to install this RIP software. So again, I'll double click on that. And then the computer's asking me again, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? You would say yes if you're just adding it to your computer. I've already added it, and both of these steps were very, very self-explanatory. So I'm going to go ahead and say no and get out of these programs. Now, to see more detailed information about this, I watched a lady's video, and she showed everything from start to finish on how she set up her DTF printer, how she added the software, how she pulled the ink. She just showed the whole thing. Now, it's a different Procolored printer than what I have, but most everything from that video was very applicable. So I am going to put a link to that in the video description below. Now, if you bought a new printer before, you probably had to prime your ink. Basically, what that meant was the software was guiding the printer through getting the ink from the ink tanks or the ink cartridges into the print head. Well, that's not the case with this printer, and unfortunately, the instructions on how to do that were left out of the manual. So I watched multiple videos. Now, on most of the videos that I watched, where you have to pull the ink from was very accessible to the person pulling the ink. That also is not the case with this printer. So my husband came in, helped me figure it out, and so here in just a little bit, you're going to see he and I working together pulling the ink. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you there is a button that looks like this on the front of the printer. You press that button and it's supposed to move the print head to the cartridge change location, which means your cartridges or your dampers are accessible. Now that wasn't working with mine. What I had to do is I had to turn it on, and then when the cartridge was in the right place, I had to unplug my power. Now later when I pressed that button though, it was working. So I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about, and I'm not sure if it's going to work or not this time. Let's see. Now a nice thing about these printers is you can open this cover and you can watch it print. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. And then remember the little picture of the ink droplet? I'm going to go ahead and push that and see what happens. Okay, so nothing happened. So let me show you what I had to do, because right now this is locked into position. I can't move it over, and I'm going to have to move it over to take this cover off and access those cartridges. So what I did is I went ahead and turned the power off, and then I'm going to power it back on. And this is going to move, and at some point it's going to be accessible here. It's not going to be in this locked position. And when it's not in this locked position, I'm going to pull the plug and turn the power off. Okay, so I went ahead and turned the power button on, and you're going to see it start moving. Now when it's in a good location, I'm going to pull the plug. Okay, so I just needed it to get unlocked. Now I should be able to move that very easily. Now the next thing that I need to do is I need to remove this black cover, because they're covering quite a bit of the cartridge. And so we unscrewed this little Phillips head screw. Then after we did that, we could lift this off. Now, even though we lifted this off, before we could access those, there's still this little plastic strip here. We had to take that off. Then we could take the cartridges out and pull the ink. So the next thing you're going to see is us pulling some of the ink through the lines. Now you use a syringe to pull the ink. Go ahead and pull 5 to 10 milliliters out, and then that's just waste ink. So you can either deposit it in that little waste tank in the back, or you can put it in a plastic cup. Now it's finally time to print something. And so I double-clicked right up here on the Procolored RIP software. Now, if you double-click on that and you don't have that blue thumb drive or whatever color yours is, you're going to get an error message, and it's going to say the dongle wasn't detected. So you need to make sure you have that plugged into your computer for this part. Right here, you can change the scale. So mine is already on inches, you can see that, and it was when I got it. And then second of all, right over here, Click on this, and you can see the size of my canvas. This is the size of film that I'm using, and so I'm good there. And then I'm ready to bring the picture in. So I'm going to click right here. It says Add Picture, and the design that I want to use is called Spooky Babe Grunge. I got this from Creative Fabrica. It is really, really cute. So let's click on that and then say Open. And you can see right here, these are the types of files you can use. Alright, so it is way too large. Let me go ahead and click on it. And then see these red things right here? I can grab those and just drag it to make it the size I want. Alright, let's see. Now down here, it is really hard to see until I highlight on it. Here's how you can do a horizontal mirror. Now I have mine set to mirror when I print it, so I don't need to click on that. Here's, whoops, it did it anyway. Here's where you can rotate it. And you know what? I think I'm going to try that. Let's go back and click on it. I would like it to be a little bit larger than it is. And so I'm just going to drag this corner to make it larger. Okay, it's trying to jump, so I'm just going to use the arrow buttons to move it over. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is go right up here where it says Rip. So I'm going to click on Rip, and it says some of the pictures out of range. Do you want to continue? So there might be little bits and pieces. Okay, well I see one right there. Let me go ahead and move it over. So I'll say no. I'll click on it again and move it back to the right just a little bit. Now I'm still going to get that message because right there, but I'm okay with that. So let's say Rip. And so I'm going to say, yep, I want to continue. And then right here, let's see, where is it? Mirror the print, that's already selected. Now you can manually print it after you rip it. You can automatically print it after you rip it, or you can print it while it's ripping. I'm going to have automatic print after rip. So I'm going to say apply. Now after I click the print button, you're going to see it processing, and then it's going to start to print. I want you to see how it processes, so I'm going to leave the camera here, and then once it starts printing, I'm going to run around, change the camera so you can see most of it print. Okay, you see up here where it says processing? Once that's done, it's going to go ahead and start printing. Now, if you follow me, you've seen me do this process before because I've done several projects with the sublimation DTF hack. So I'm using the same powder that I use on those, and I'm just going to put quite a bit on here. And I saw some little clumps come out, but that's okay. So I'm going to get a lot on there. And then I'm just going to start spreading this powder around. Now I put this butcher paper under it because the unused powder can go right back in the jar. Now on the DTF sublimation hack, it's easier to see where your powder is because you don't have that white undercoat. So I'm just going to do this several times and then look at it pretty closely to see if it looks like it's good. Alright, now this is my first one to ever do with a real DTF. So hopefully it comes out good, but if not, we're going to learn together. Alright, let's go ahead and Just tap the excess off. And I can see it on there. Now, it's not as thick of a coating as when I do the DTF sublimation hack, but I assume that it's the right amount. Now again, I'm going to go ahead and pour this back in my container, but first I want to get the curing oven going. Now here's the oven that I received from Procolored. It has this handle that I did have to put on. That's the only thing that I had to put together. Now when I turned it on, it was defaulted to 120 degrees Celsius for 150 seconds. When I hit this timing start, a fan's going to come on and there is a filter in it. So let's open this up, put it in there, and start that time going. All right, let me go ahead and take this off and take a good look at it, see if I think it's done. Now that looks good. Hopefully you can tell in the camera that it's melted. I'm going to let it cool down a little bit and then I'll just barely touch it over here. With this being my first time, I'm not sure if that's the right amount of time or the right temperature. Now this transfer film didn't come with any instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and use instructions from some film I've used before. I'm going to heat 325 for 10 seconds. I'm going to wait for the film to cool down. I'm going to pull it off and then I'm going to put parchment paper over it and do it another 5 to 10 seconds. Now I'm going to use some heat tape on this because I want to lift the shirt up, look at it, make sure I think it looks centered, looks straight and all that. But if you're not going to lift your shirt up, you don't need this heat tape. And actually, I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to go with it. All right, that's warm, but I think I can go ahead and peel it. Then remember, I'm going to put that parchment paper over, press it again for 5 to 10 seconds. That really forces your ink and your adhesive into the fibers of your shirt. And that came off so easily. And let me show you, there is no ink left or no powder or anything left on this film. All right, let's take that back over to the table and get a closer look at it. Now, I've received DTF transfers before, but this is the first shirt I've done all on my own. And I love how it turned out. Now, I've enjoyed doing the DTF sublimation hack, but this printer has no rollers. It's using actual DTF ink. It's placing that white coat on the bottom, so I can put this on anything. So there it is. I think this image is so cute. I got it from Creative Fabrica. If you're interested in it, I'll put a link to it in the video description. Now my final thoughts on this printer. Getting it set up was very taxing for me, but I'm not super tech savvy. If I ever get another DTF printer, I will know more what I'm doing. And then even though setup was taxing for me, I love the final product. I'm so happy I finally have one of these. If you found anything in this helpful or just entertaining, please give me that thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, maybe you even have advice for me on how to make my process easier, let me know those in the comment section below. So thanks again for joining me, and until my next video, bye-bye.